Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. There is only one story to begin with, and that is the fiasco that happened. Auburn, Alabama, Saturday night, Deep South's oldest rivalry. This was a game that on paper looked like it could be close. Auburn was only a 3.5-point underdog in the Circa Sportsbook. Kirby Smart has historically said how tough Jordan-Hare Stadium is to play. Well, Georgia gets the win. Final score 20-10. Unfortunately, that is not what anybody's talking about. It's frankly not what anybody cares about, as there were multiple refereeing controversies in this game. By the way, they all went against Auburn, and this comes just a few weeks after the SEC had to actually apologize to the Auburn Tigers for a missed call in the Oklahoma game. There is no other way to put it. The SEC has an officiating crisis, and it's an absolute embarrassment from the league that they have not done more to address it. By the way, Matt, if you have not logged into the Torres on Auburn account and shared that we're talking about this live, now would be a great time to do so. Let's go ahead and get in. Listen, I could sit here and talk about, first half, second drive, this and that. I think you all watched the game, and if you didn't, you all have a pretty good idea. But Auburn, coming off of a bye, desperate for a win. I was a defender of Auburn coming into this week because, you lost 2 games in a row heading into the bye, but both were on the road. Both were the teams that were in the top 10 coming into the week, and both games were one-possession games. You easily, I don't want to say could have won either one, but maybe should have. But the big story, even before we talk about Georgia, is the fact that in that Oklahoma game, you lose by a touchdown. And in that game, there is not even a controversial call. It was just a flat out wrong call, as Oklahoma wide receiver Isaiah Satania runs to the sidelines as if he is going to sub out, kind of hangs out on the sidelines, then runs a go route down the sideline. John Mateer hits him for a touchdown. And right away, I will give credit to ESPN. Bill Lamonier, their rules expert, said not only is that against the rules, that is a rule that was emphasized all offseason long. There's no way that should be a touchdown. The SEC had to officially apologize the day after that game. It is now 10:12 Central Time, 11:12 Eastern Time. And I think the SEC is probably going to have to submit another apology to the Auburn Tigers for what we saw on Saturday. In terms of the game, you can see it on the ticker. Great job by Matt setting it up. But Auburn, again, coming off of a bye, really good early. They're up 10-0 with about a minute to go. The defense is flying around. The defense is awesome. The defense is playing championship-level football like it has all season long. And to the credit of the offense, they're moving the ball. Georgia's on its toes. They have no answers, whatever. And Auburn gets into not only the red zone, but on the goal line with right around 2 minutes to go in the first half. Now, what's kind of crazy about the controversial play that we're about to talk about in a minute is that the play before Georgia or Auburn actually you could have argued scored on that play. They didn't. The announcers, I agreed with them. In some ways, we thought in the moment it actually worked out better for Auburn, because guess what? Now you get to chew a little more time off the clock before you inevitably what we think are about to go in for a score. But let's go ahead and get into the controversial play. By the way, side tangent, should mention, I think most of you know, but for those of you who don't, we can't show highlights here. I would love to show as many highlights as we could. It's against YouTube rules. It's against, ESPN pays a lot of money to the SEC. We're not affiliated with ESPN, so I can't show highlights. I wish I could. I know we're going to have thousands of you watch this on YouTube at some point. Can't show highlights. But anyway, we'll talk it through. The plays. Let's go ahead and discuss, okay? So first of all, the play on the goal line. Everybody knows Auburn's up 10-0. You score there to go up 17-0. I think the game is essentially over, okay? Jackson Arnold on the 1-yard line, dives for the end zone, dives for the goal line. We don't really know what happens. It feels like it's a touchdown. And then all of a sudden, one of Georgia's players not only comes up with the ball, he starts running the other way. And so right away, it's like, oh my goodness, what just happened? What's going on? Is it a fumble? Is it a recovery? Is it a touchdown on Georgia's part? Or is it just a touchdown for Auburn? I'll be honest, I thought the first video replay, I said, oh my goodness, I don't know if it's a fumble, but I don't know if we had all sorts of technical problems this morning. I don't know if it's a fumble. But what I do think I know is that there might not be enough evidence, might not be enough video replay to overturn the call on the field, which was a fumble. And so I bring it up because in my head, I go, oh my goodness, it is going to be crazy at Jordan-Hare because a touchdown is going to be not only taken off the board, but it's going to be 6 points for Georgia the other way. Well, as the reviews go on, I thought it became increasingly clear that Jackson Arnold crossed the goal line with the ball and scored a touchdown. Okay, producer Matt, you can pop up that tweet from CFB Kings. You can see it right there. The goal line is there. I want to give credit to CFB Kings. The goal line is right there. Jackson Arnold has the ball, has possession, crosses the goal line. Not only did I feel like it's a touchdown, but I'll take it a step further. Sean McDonough, Greg McElroy, the rules expert Bill Lamagna, I believe, was on the call of this one as well. They all said that they thought it was a touchdown as well, that they thought video evidence absolutely proved enough for the call to be overturned on the field and for there to be a touchdown. Instead, they go to the replay monitor. They go again. By the way, I think it's also worth noting as they were reviewing it, Greg McElroy brought up the point of the longer this goes on, it's probably a good sign for Auburn because if they immediately go to the replay review and there's no sign at all of there's no indication that it could even be a touchdown, then it's a quick review. So the longer it goes on, the better you think it is for Auburn. Of course, we all know what happened from there. The refs come out. Call on the field stands. It is a turnover by Auburn. Now, I'll even say this. One, I thought it was a terrible call. You saw the view a second ago of Jackson Arnold clearly crossing the plane of the end zone. I also don't really understand why, if it wasn't a touchdown, it wasn't 6 points for Georgia, but that's another conversation for another day. That was bad. Here's what gets worse. The ensuing drive, there's a couple other things just on the ensuing drive. So at that point, even after the touchdown gets taken off the board, Auburn is up 10-0. And again, I apologize that I cannot show you highlights here. But I bring it up because on the ensuing drive, Auburn gets a stop. They actually call a timeout, which I don't know if Hugh Freeze addressed that at his post-game press conference. I assume he maybe regrets it. Georgia picks up a first down, and then from there, it just turns into an absolute ref show, okay? There is a called targeting on the field. So the points get taken off. Then there is a play when Georgia gets the ball back. This is all with under 2 minutes to go, okay? Under 2 minutes to go, there is a play where there is a targeting called. This after they went to video review to see if it was a catch, to see if the Georgia's receiver's feet were about. They ended up calling a targeting. And not only did they call a targeting after they didn't blow the whistle for targeting, it's also worth noting it was a questionable targeting call. Again, what is targeting? What is not? Nobody really knows at this point. Looked like he did not lead. It did not feel helmet to helmet to me. Whatever. That one goes against Auburn. One of their best cornerbacks, one of their best defensive players is out for the rest of the game. Later on in the drive, it continued. Amaris Williams, very questionable. Roughing the passer play sets up yet another Georgia first down. They end up kicking a field goal before the half. And the stat that I saw, it might have been from the Torres on Auburn page. Make sure you're following our Torres on Auburn page on Twitter. But the stat I saw, prior to the fumble, Georgia had 20 yards of total offense. They had 35 yards of offense just on penalties on that final drive that set up the 3 points. I saw multiple Auburn accounts, including our Torres on Auburn page, which producer Matt, I don't know if you want it out there, but you help with that page and you do a great job. Basically, Georgia's entire offense in the first half was the refs just moving the ball up the field for them for 3 points. Out of the half, we know what happened. Auburn's offense stalls. We cannot ignore the fact that they did not score at all after that initial 10 points. But you talk about another disastrous call, middle of the fourth quarter. Really, it was more of early fourth quarter. It was still very much a game. 13-10, Georgia has taken the lead. They have now scored 10 unanswered points in the second half, 13 unanswered points overall. And we all know what happened from there. crucial play, clock is ticking down. Kirby Smart runs to the refs in what appears to be him calling a timeout. You can see it on the screen right there. He's calling a timeout. Well, he then goes to the refs and says, no. I wasn't calling a timeout. I was clapping. I'm mad because they're not supposed to be able to clap to, basically it's a fake cadence that can throw off the offensive line. No. I wasn't calling a timeout. I was clapping. Again, we can't show video replay, but you see the still picture of Kirby Smart very clearly calling a timeout. And you see the fact that, oh, by the way, the timeout is not given, but the clock stops. So I've never seen this before. The refs call a timeout on the field as the clock is winding down. Georgia is about to take a delay of game penalty. Instead, the timeout is called. The clock is stopped. Kirby Smart argues that he did not call a timeout. Georgia is not charged a timeout. The clock stops, and the game goes on as if nothing has happened, okay? So that was that. It ends up being a 20-10 final, and I got to say this. Two things can be true. Yes, there are a lot of reasons that Auburn lost this game that have nothing to do with the refs. I am also going to tell you this. I 100% blame the refs for how things were handled. I actually do believe that Auburn lost this game because of the refs. And to make it even worse, second time in 3 SEC games that an absolute debacle has happened in an Auburn game. This is inexcusable. And when you see fans of teams that have no affiliation with Auburn or Georgia calling out the SEC, you know it's bad. You know it's a disaster. Matt, did I send you the Alabama fan? So this is Thomas Dearson. He's just an Alabama fan, but I was scrolling on Saturday night getting ready for the show, and I saw this. This is just, you could find 100 tweets exactly like this. Thomas Dearson, sorry to blow you up, buddy, but he said, I'm an Alabama fan. I hate Auburn, all capital HATE. But even I know that this Georgia-Auburn game is complete BS, and I am expletiving it out because he did not say BS. The refs have made capital multiple completely inexplicable, bad, incorrect calls in favor of Georgia. Kirby Smart was clearly calling a timeout. I never say this, but this smells dirty. Matt, save that tweet. We will get back to it in a minute. But let me talk about this for a second, okay? Because I know what people are going to say. First of all, people are going to say, Torres, don't blame the referees and the SEC when Auburn doesn't score a single point after all those controversial calls. Okay, so first of all, let me say this. Actually, as a matter of fact, Matt, before we get to Torres' take, let's talk. Hugh Freeze did address the 2 big calls. So again, a goal line play where it very clearly feels like Jackson Arnold crossed the plane, and there was video evidence that he did. It was called a fumble on the field. It was not overturned. And then Kirby Smart clearly calling a timeout. The refs don't reward him a timeout, do stop the clock, give Georgia time to set up the next play. Matt, here, play Hugh Freeze after the game talking about all this.
A lot of things, but, I felt like we broke the plane. All you have to do is the nose of the ball just has to break the plane, and I thought that was had a pretty good shot of that but it didn't go our way. And then I don't know how they should have had a delay a game or a timeout, and not a whole new play. I'm still not sure what happened there, but there's a lot of times that I make bad calls and officials do the same, but it certainly feels like we're not getting many of the breaks.
That was Hugh Freeze after the game, and remember, the SEC has already publicly apologized to Auburn for the loss at Oklahoma, not for the loss, but for a missed call that led to a touchdown in a 7-point Oklahoma victory. It is now 11:24 Eastern, 10:24 Central. We will see if the SEC makes a public statement on this. So a couple thoughts. First of all, people will say, well, this game didn't cost Auburn. The refs didn't cost Auburn the game. Actually, I'm going to argue the exact opposite. I'm going to absolutely 100% argue that it did. First of all, I think there's 2 variables here. One, and I saw producer Matt tweet this from the Torres on Auburn account. Matt is an Auburn alum. I'm sorry, buddy. But I bring it up because he tweeted it out, and it's fair. The way the defense was playing, if Auburn goes up 17-0 before the break, and obviously Georgia would get the ball back basically with pretty much no time to drive the length of the field. If Auburn goes up 17-0, I'm sorry, the game is over. Georgia ended up scoring 20 points in the game with the field goal before the half. They're not scoring 20 points in the second half to come back and win the game. And that is assuming, by the way, Auburn with all the momentum, completely stalls out the rest of the game like they did. So 17-0 to me is a death nail. I don't think Georgia comes back from that. But here's the other thing that I don't think I've heard anybody talk about is the way the half ended. It not only took all of the momentum and all of the juice out of the Auburn offense, I would argue the same thing happened to the defense as well. The defense, which has played at a championship level all year, was certainly playing at a championship level all night. As I said, 20 yards allowed with about 2 minutes to go in the first half. Georgia could not move the ball at all, okay? And so I bring it up because the defense, playing defense in football, we all played football at some point in our lives for the most part. Playing defense is totally predicated on energy and momentum and whatever, right? What is the simplest saying on defense in football? See ball, hit ball, right? It's about energy, it's about flying to the ball, it's about whatever. Well, when you not only have 7 points taken off the board, but when you now have to go back on the field after a 10 to 15 minute delay, then you get on the field, you make a few plays, there's another 10 to 15 minute delay to check for targeting, and you then have to get another delay as they check for roughing the pass. I mean, I think the stat was at some point, I think it was like 20 minutes of real time. Here it is. Producer Matt, thank you. 36 minutes of real time to finish the final 2 minutes of game action in this game. And so, yes, I absolutely think it cost Auburn this game because, again, it's not only that the offense had 7 points taken off the board. It's not only that the offense's momentum was killed. It felt like the defense's momentum was killed as well because, again, you're ramping up to make a stop. Then the refs stop the game. Then you're ramping up again and you have a player thrown out. Then you're ramping up again. It's like there's only so many times you could do that before eventually you just run out of like mental energy and physical energy. And so I absolutely think it cost Auburn the game. Now, even if you want to argue that that didn't cost Auburn the game, let me say this. And by the way, it did, but that's another conversation. This is an embarrassment for the SEC. And I keep going. I think there's two very obvious things that need to be discussed with the SEC. One, why does this keep happening? And two, the transparency. As far as why does this keep happening, there is no excuse. And I've talked about this in basketball too. But the SEC they call themselves the gold standard in college sports. And I think to a degree that they are, right? But they call themselves the gold standard. They got a multiple $100 million deal a year, billions of dollars with ESPN and ABC. And it's like you have hundreds of millions a year that you're paying out to your schools. How do we have a major refereeing controversy every single weekend? How do the referees not know basic rules? Even if you want to argue that maybe somehow, some way, they got the Jackson Arnold play right and that it wasn't an Auburn touchdown. Well, go back 2 weeks ago to Oklahoma. The league admitted that the refs got it wrong. The league admitted that the refs missed on a call that was emphasized all offseason. And then beyond that, late in the game, the timeout with Kirby Smart is one of the most inexcusable calls I've ever seen. No timeout is awarded. Or no timeout is removed from Georgia. There's no delay of penalty. You have so much frustration if you were an Auburn fan, and I think it's despicable, and I think it's embarrassing. I think beyond that, here's the other thing I keep going back to with the SEC. There's no accountability or transparency either. As far as the transparency is concerned, I was thinking about this. I don't know how many people have noticed. I don't know how many people watch ACC football. There's not a lot to watch besides Miami this year, but the ACC has now started putting a TV or camera crew in the replay booth in the league office. So when the ref on the field is communicating with the league office, you can see what they're talking about, why it's happening, and the manner in which it is happening. We criticize the ACC for a lot. The football product stinks. The basketball product has stunk for the last couple of years, although I think it'll be better this year. But this is innovative, and every league should be doing it if for no other reason than transparency. Maybe there is a great reason that the SEC can argue that that Jackson Arnold call should not have been overturned and should have stood the way that it is. I kind of want to see it, though. I kind of want to see what their justification is, because if you can have a random dude on Twitter that can freeze the shot and see that the ball crossed the plane with Jackson Arnold holding it, then I'm sorry. All the fancy cameras that this billion-dollar enterprise that is the SEC has should be able to do it as well. I think what is equally as frustrating to me, though, is the lack of accountability from the league office. I mean, I know that they said the right things after the Oklahoma-Auburn game, but I looked it up on Sunday. Maybe those refs were suspended. I didn't see it. By the way, last year, remember Georgia, Texas, when the fans threw stuff on the field and there was no punishment to Texas, no this, no that, no whatever. And now, again, there's going to be no punishment for the refs. There's going to be no accountability. And Auburn just took another loss that you can argue that they absolutely should not have taken. Listen, I think Auburn fans can feel two ways. You can be frustrated with the offense. You can be frustrated with the way that things ended. You can also argue that you should be 5-1 right now. I don't even think there's a debate. And so the SEC, I think this is my biggest frustration, is people make mistakes. Hugh Freeze even said it in the press conference. He said, listen, I make bad calls as a coach, but I have to come up here and I have to be held accountable for it. Now, I've said for years, I think the referees should have to go to the podium and answer questions just like the players and the coaches do. You're going to pay coaches millions of dollars. You're going to pay players millions of dollars. You're going to send an 18-year-old up there after he drops an interception, or an 18-year-old up there after he drops the game-winning touchdown, but you can't send a 45-year-old dentist from Milwaukee who's doing this part-time up there? I'm sorry. I don't want to hear it. There's no excuses, and I think that's the frustrating part. Like, if Greg Sankey had a backbone, he actually did something when these guys screwed up, then that'd be one thing. If he suspended people, if he came out and spoke against the referees, and I understand you don't want to be too combative with the referees. You want them to be on your side, and you don't want to create this aura or apparent, this situation where all of a sudden it feels like you want to defend them when you can. But some things are indefensible. It's no different than any other walk of life. Listen, my wife's in the other room. She loves me. She wants to defend me whenever she can, but sometimes I do stuff that's so stupid she can't defend me. And it's the same with Greg Sankey. There are sometimes you cannot defend your employees, and punishment needs to be had. If referees don't understand the basic rules, then I'm sorry, they should not be doing the job. Find someone who knows the rules, who knows the rule book, who understands it. And what are the guys in the league office doing? Because that's the part that pisses me off as well. So I could go on and on. I've said my piece. I thought it was an embarrassing dark moment for the SEC. It is now 11:32 Eastern, 10:32 Central. We'll see if the SEC releases any sort of statement. As of right now, they have not, but I'm guessing by the time many of you watch this video, you will have seen that something is said.